You think you've hit rock bottom until the truth starts moving in silence. This one gets real fast. Stick with me, and if you're into stories like this, tap subscribe. It's one click, and it helps more than you think. I got cut on a Tuesday in mid-February. They called it a restructuring, like slapping a new label on a pile of trash made it smell better. I walked out of FinMeridian's St. Louis office with a cardboard box and my badge still warm from the scanner. Sat in my truck a full minute, staring at the steering wheel, forcing my face to match the story I was selling. Tired, beaten, not like a man with a plan. When I pulled into the driveway of our neat little place in Webster Groves, I already had the act down. But Brenna didn't even pretend to care. She was on her phone in the kitchen, one slipper kicked off, the other tapping like she was running a clock on me. She looked up, saw the box, and her mouth twitched like she'd just heard a good joke. She said, "Well, look at that. Now you can finally be useful around here." Not shocked, not even curious, just pleased, like I'd finally accepted my role as the deadweight husband. That tone wasn't new. I'd been hearing it since the promotion stopped and the house got too quiet. Before we go further, quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from, and let's continue. Her mother, Jory, was already posted up on the living room couch with the remote in one hand and some smug in the other. She tilted her head when I walked in. "I've said it before," Jory offered, like I was the weather. "He needs less thinking and more providing." I didn't say a word. I just set the box on the dining table like I was placing a coffin. Inside was a coffee mug my kid gave me when he was 8, a framed 10 years of service certificate, and a couple pens I didn't want but took anyway, just to fill space. Brenna turned back to the fridge and started rattling off chores like we were already mid-conversation. "Dinner's on you, laundry too, if you're gonna be home all day." She smiled, thin and sharp, not angry. Practical, the way someone smiles before they push a button labeled "grind down further." I nodded once and stayed quiet. I'd practiced that nod in the mirror before leaving the office, the one that says, "You win," for now. What she didn't know, and what Jory sure didn't know, was that I hadn't been laid off. I'd orchestrated it, spent 11 months collecting evidence of a fraud deep enough to bankrupt people and sharp enough to slice through any loyalty the company pretended to have. But fires don't start well when you're still standing inside the building. I made sure my exit looked real, took the settlement I'd engineered, walked out slow, and played the defeated man. That night, Brenna picked apart the dinner I cooked like it was a failed exam. Jory offered notes on how she would have seasoned it better. I chewed, smiled, and nodded again. Later, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table, not the office, where they could see the screen, typed in job titles, made it believable. And while the house quieted down around me, I whispered the one sentence that had carried me for almost a year. "Let them underestimate me. It keeps them sloppy." Lorna Sutter called me in early March. First time I'd heard her voice since her retirement party. She didn't waste time with small talk, just said, "Carter, I don't want to make trouble, but my pension deposit's wrong." Lorna was old school. She used to bring oatmeal raisin cookies to every fourth quarter wrap-up, called everybody Han, whether she liked them or not, and still checked numbers in pencil before she trusted the system. If she was calling, something was off. "How wrong?" I asked. She hesitated. "Down about 2/3. The letter says it's a plan adjustment, but it reads like a form. No one will give me a real answer." She wasn't angry. That's what stuck with me. She was embarrassed, like asking for the money she worked for made her a problem. I told her I'd look, just to ease her mind, off the record. After hours, I ran queries I shouldn't have touched without a request ticket. I didn't dig through restricted files. I just looked sideways, pulled the plan details, matched her deposit history against current output. The drop was real, and the adjustment reason didn't match her record. Looked more like someone had merged her payout with a ghost entry. I went deeper. Retirement plan statements, reconciliation logs, internal summaries. If you knew where to look, the numbers started talking, and what they said was ugly. Accounts got corrected at random. Vendor payments spiked at the end of each quarter, right before the executives got their performance bonuses. Then came cleanup entries, always just neat enough to balance the books, but never enough to explain the missing funds. I started saving everything the safe way, PDFs, printouts, email chains. I didn't take originals. I didn't touch code. Every file I backed up went on an encrypted drive, one layer deep from public view, nothing with my name on it. Around that time, my sister Kendra kept calling. Her husband had lost hours at the plant, their grocery bills were tight, and she needed to vent. I kept it light, told her I was busy with a work issue, and couldn't talk long. Truth was, every time I heard her voice, it made the whole thing heavier, because if this mess reached people like her, working class, no cushion, just trying to keep the lights on, it wouldn't just be fraud, it'd be devastation. The pattern got loud fast. What started as one pension drop turned into dozens, then over 200. Quiet losses, hidden behind fake explanations and buried under leadership speeches about resilience and long-term vision. I didn't tell Brenna. She wouldn't have listened unless I told her someone famous was involved. I didn't tell my manager either. I'd seen what happened to people who raised red flags. They got reorganized out of their roles or labeled as negative culture fits. Instead, I wrote a summary, 1 page, stripped of emotion. Sent it through a federal tip line, and offered to meet in person if they could verify their end first. It took 2 weeks. Then a secure reply came in. A financial crimes agent wanted to talk, and that's when it stopped being numbers on a spreadsheet and started feeling like a clock was ticking. The clock was running. For the next 17 days, I ran 2 separate lives like I was born to it. Mornings at home were a performance. Me, coffee, job listings on the laptop, a frown deep enough to suggest failure. I played the worried husband for Brenna and the obedient fool for Jory. I even clicked on links just to make the keyboard sound convincing. Then I'd leave around 10. Not too early, not too late. Said I was going to networking meetups or library workshops. Truth was, I was driving past every normal route I'd ever taken and meeting Special Agent Talia Ruiz in spots nobody from our zip code would ever set foot. First meeting was at a diner near a tire outlet where the windows were fogged and the coffee tasted like rust. She didn't waste a second on small talk. Just pulled out a tablet and said, "Let's start with exposure risk." Ruiz had this calm, clipped way of speaking, like she was permanently 5 minutes ahead of you, but didn't need to prove it. She explained how subpoenas really worked, what counted as obstruction, how fast a defense team would twist my motives, and why I needed a paper chain that held up in court. I handed over a small folder, nothing too juicy. She flipped through it, nodding. "You're paranoid in a smart way. Keep that." We met in 3 other places after that. A library co-working room with flickering lights, a coffee shop that reeked of burnt milk, and a sad strip mall cafe that only sold bottled drinks. Every time, I brought copies. Never everything. I made sure if something got intercepted, it wouldn't burn the whole stack. She told me, "Until this breaks wide open, your life at home stays boring. No red flags. Attention gets people hurt." I nodded. I understood. The part I didn't expect was how heavy the nights felt. I'd be at the sink washing plates, and Brenna would breeze in, glance at my search tabs, and say, "Any interviews today?" Always followed by this little exhale, like she was preparing to be disappointed. Then came the parties. Not actual parties, just her inviting people over without warning. I'd be standing there, sponge in hand, while she told friends I was between opportunities, like joblessness was a detox or a juice cleanse. They'd chuckle, I'd nod, and no one asked what I really did. Meanwhile, the proof kept piling up. I found purchase orders for lighting repairs in buildings that hadn't been touched in years, renovation invoices for non-existent projects, money out, no work in. Ruiz flagged one vendor name, said it kept popping up in whistleblower chatter. I started tracking it. That's when Brenna popped into focus. Her employer handled contract management for facility upgrades, the same kind that matched those invoices. I didn't say a word, just started paying more attention. She started coming home later. New passcode on her phone, set her screen to auto-dim faster. At dinner, her phone stayed face down, angled away like I didn't already know the move. Then Reed called. My son, 27. Said he and his fiancée were trying to book a venue but short on the deposit. I told him I'd handle it, and the second we hung up, I moved the cash before Brenna could sniff it out in our shared accounts. That same night, I grabbed a basic motion camera from the garage, mounted it low facing the home office door, and synced it to my private email. Not to spy, just to know if someone crossed a line. That camera paid for itself faster than I expected. Next morning, I walked downstairs and caught it right away. Printer tray slightly open, one sheet sitting crooked like someone tested a print and shoved it back without care. It wasn't a big mess, that's what made it worse. It was careful, rushed, but careful. Jory stood at the stove, humming like she was alone in the world. Coffee already poured, toast going, acting like she owned the place. Brenna was on the road, which usually meant she didn't want questions. I leaned on the counter and said, "You been in my office last night?" She didn't even flinch. Just gave me that wide, fake, soft smile. "Why would I be in your office?" That answer came too smooth, like she'd already practiced it. I didn't push, just nodded, grabbed my coffee, and played the same role I'd been playing, slow, harmless, not worth watching. But my pulse had already picked up. I knew what I'd see. Later, when the house was empty, I pulled up the camera feed on my laptop, scrolled to just after 2 in the morning. There she was, Jory, slipping into my office like she'd done it 100 times before. No hesitation, no fear. She stayed 8 minutes, moved around the desk, checked drawers, even tested the printer. Then she walked out with nothing in her hands. That told me 2 things. First, she was looking for something specific. Second, she hadn't found it. I shut the laptop and sat there a second, letting it settle. Not anger, not yet, just clarity. At lunch, I went out and bought a new lock for my file cabinet, installed it myself, no noise, no announcement. That evening, I brought it up casual over dinner. "I'm thinking about picking up a temp role," I said, cutting into my food like it was nothing. "Might need a background check." Brenna's fork paused midair, just for half a second, then she kept eating. "That sounds responsible," she said, too neutral to be real. That tiny reaction was enough. I filed it away. Next day, I met Ruiz and told her everything. Printer, camera, the late-night visit. She didn't look surprised. "Good," she said. "Now we know they're nervous." I frowned. "Feels like more than nervous." She shook her head once. "Nervous people make mistakes. Keep originals out of your house. Leave them something to find." I followed that exactly. That same afternoon, I moved every real document into a safe deposit box under my name only. No shared access, no paper trail back to the house. Then I filled my office with decoys, job applications, grocery budgets, random notes, nothing illegal, nothing useful. If Jory came back, she'd walk away thinking she'd checked everything. Around the same time, Brenna flipped a switch, started acting warm, too warm. Brought home takeout, called me babe twice in one night. That word sounded foreign coming out of her mouth. I didn't react, just watched. Next morning, she started asking questions while pouring coffee. "Has anyone from your old job reached out?" she asked. Then, "Any calls from HR lately?" I shrugged. "Nothing worth mentioning." She nodded, but her eyes stayed on me longer than usual, measuring. Jory got worse. Showing up more, staying longer, commenting on bills like she was auditing us. One afternoon she said, "Family should protect each other no matter what." That landed heavy. Not advice, a warning. That's when it clicked. Brenna didn't run her life. Jory did. That night, I called my sister Kendra and laid it out straight. No sugar. "I think my marriage is about to blow up," I told her. "If Reed hears anything, I need you steady." Kendra didn't hesitate. I knew something felt off. Just don't let them make you look foolish. I tightened my grip on the phone and said, "They won't," then hung up and locked my office door behind me. I texted Ruiz that night, then left the house for a late-night store run I didn't need. We met in her car, under a flickering streetlight 2 towns over. I handed her photos of Brenna's refinance paperwork, just the headers and the dates. "She's trying to wrap me into future debt," I said. "Clean separation's not in her plan." Ruiz flipped through the images. "Okay," she said, "then let's tighten the lane." Her new instruction was simple. Find the most direct link between the stolen retirement money and a real human signature. Not gossip, not what people assumed, something physical, paper, names, dates. The kind of thing a jury couldn't talk itself out of. We built a timeline using flagged vendor transactions, mostly labeled facility upgrades, technology retrofits, corporate refresh initiatives, all code for fake. Ruiz had a chart of matching payouts that spiked in the last 2 weeks of each quarter. The part that jumped out was how perfect the documentation looked. No typos, no missing pages. Purchase order, scope summary, signed completion certificate, invoice, cleared check. Every single one stacked clean, like someone had built a model and copy-pasted the format over and over. One vendor name kept repeating. Ruiz flagged it, asked me to dig around my house for anything familiar. She didn't have to wait long. Brenna wasn't careful. She printed packets for work sometimes, left them on the table, or forgot them in the printer. I didn't have to break into anything. I just waited. Letterheads matched. Project codes matched. Her firm was handling subcontracts for one of the flagged vendors. One stamped page even had her initials. That was when I stopped pretending I could stay neutral. That weekend, Brenna insisted we attend her mother's birthday dinner. Big family thing. Steakhouse out in Chesterfield. I went along, because nothing says nothing to hide like showing up. Mid-meal, Brenna raised her glass and said, "Cheers to my sabbatical husband. We're keeping him fed and humble." Whole table laughed. I did too, with my mouth only. Inside, I watched every face. Some people glanced away. Others smirked. One cousin whispered something to her boyfriend and wouldn't meet my eyes again. That told me everything about who knew what. After dessert, Jory caught me by the bar. She sipped her wine and said, "A man your age needs stability. Don't make Brenna carry you." She patted my arm like she was being helpful. I leaned in and said, "You always give threats that sound like recipes. It's impressive." She blinked once, then gave me a tight smile and walked off. That night, Ruiz told me something new. Blaine Rourke, Finn Meridian's CEO, had started sniffing around. Quiet meetings. Damage control. She said, "He wants to know how loud this is going to get." A few days later, Rourke requested a private meeting, with me. Not through lawyers, not through HR, through Ruiz. We met at a furnished rental in a commercial plaza out in Fenton. Neutral space, one table, no cameras. Ruiz stood at the window while he pitched. No briefcase, no bribes, just language built to sound like mercy. "Let me help you land softly," Rourke said. "There's room in our consulting network. I can make a call, help you land a new title. This doesn't have to be a war." I let him finish. Then I said, "I've seen the statements, I've seen the cuts. You're not doing me a favor. You're trying to put a leash on me." He stopped smiling. Ruiz never sat, just watched him with arms crossed like she was timing how long his confidence would last. Later, she told me, "That wasn't a bribe, that was a probe. He wanted to know if we could still flip you." That night, Brenna switched tactics. No fake sweetness, just business. She set a folder on the counter and said, "We should update paperwork while we've got the time. Beneficiaries, bank authorizations, account access." I nodded, opened the folder, and thumbed through like I cared. The second she walked out to shower, I sent Ruiz a new message. "She's trying to lock me in. She knows something shifted." 2 days later, I was at the dining table with Ruiz and Blaine Rourke. It was Thursday, late March, around 2:40 in the afternoon. The house was quiet, blinds drawn, back door locked. Ruiz had called the meeting. Said she wanted one last controlled setting before the subpoenas became headlines. My place was neutral ground. Rourke wouldn't walk into a federal building, and Ruiz wouldn't meet him in his office. Her team was parked a block over, watching for interruptions. The plan was to wrap before Brenna got back. Rourke looked like he hadn't slept in days. No suit, no tie, just a wrinkled shirt and hands that wouldn't stop rubbing together like he could erase ink by friction. The man who used to shake hands with senators now looked like he couldn't hold down soup. I walked him through the folder Ruiz laid out. No spin, just plain English. "That stamp there? It means payment was approved. That line? That's the false completion code. It means no work was done, but the invoice got processed anyway." He didn't argue. He just nodded and blinked slow, like each word hurt. Ruiz didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the documents like a surgeon watching for a pulse. Then she slid the proof across. One packet, placed gently in the center of the table. "Office renovation project," she said. "Certified as completed, signed by a contract manager from a preferred vendor. That vendor is tied directly to your wife's employer." I leaned forward. There it was, Brenna's name, her job title, her initials on the final page. I didn't feel shock. I didn't even feel anger. Just that steady cold thing in my ribs tightening, slow and certain. The moment when suspicion ends and fact takes its seat. Then the front door opened. Ruiz didn't react, and neither did I. That was part of the plan. If we scrambled, we'd look guilty. I slid the top folder closed but left the others in place. Brenna stepped in, keys still in hand, and froze mid-step. She saw Rourke first, then Ruiz, then the badge on the table. Her gaze dropped to the papers like a magnet. She didn't ask what was going on. She already knew. "Hi, I'm Special Agent Talia Ruiz," Ruiz said, voice calm and professional. "We're in the middle of a conversation. You're welcome to listen, but I do need to ask you to sit down." Brenna laughed, a high, thin sound, dry and false. "Is this some kind of prank?" Her hands were trembling. Ruiz slid one sheet forward and pointed. "Is this your signature, Ms. Keene?" Brenna stared. Her face changed in 3 beats. Shock, rage, calculation. She didn't deny it. She went straight to the story. "I processed paperwork. That's all I did. My mother handled the vendor relationships. I don't know if the projects were real." Ruiz didn't blink. "We'll need your phone and work laptop, right now. This is an active federal investigation. Obstruction is a felony." Brenna's jaw clenched, but she handed them over. Rourke tried one last trick, turned to me and said, "Carter, we should talk alone. We've known each other a long time." Ruiz stepped between us. "You're done here. All further contact goes through counsel." She walked him out like she was escorting a prisoner without cuffs. He didn't look back. The door closed. Brenna whipped toward me, eyes blazing. "You did this to me." I stood up slow, looked her in the eye. "No, you did it. You signed the paperwork. You laughed when you thought I was worthless. This isn't revenge. This is daylight." The front door clicked shut behind Ruiz, and less than 72 hours later, the leaks started. Ruiz had warned me. Once the warrants landed, silence wouldn't last. First came the headlines, whistleblower inside Finmeridian, then the push alerts, then the evening anchor's serious face talking about retirement funds under review. They hadn't dropped my name, but the phrase cooperating witness might as well have come with a blinking arrow pointed at my house. The street changed fast. A gray van started parking 2 houses down, always with one guy in the driver's seat, pretending to scroll his phone. A neighbor I hadn't spoken to in 6 years suddenly knocked with banana bread and a weirdly rehearsed, "Just wanted to check in." Brenna shifted gears overnight, played the part of the exhausted wife stuck with an unstable man. She told people I'd become obsessed with spreadsheets and fraud stories, said I wasn't sleeping, said I was under pressure and misdirecting it. I didn't clap back. I didn't have to. People who lie tend to talk too much. Jory, of course, turned the living room into her headquarters, started calling family meetings, right there on my furniture, with Brenna and whatever cousin she could wrangle. She'd speak softly about staying calm and protecting legacy, and then stare straight at my office door like she was waiting for round 2. One night, I heard her whispering in the hallway. I cracked my door just enough to catch it. She was on the phone saying, "We need to move those assets now. Close the personal ones first." I didn't call her out. I called my bank, moved my direct deposits, split my savings account under separate legal protections. If they wanted to sink, they could do it with their own lifeboat. Next, Brenna switched tactics. Sent me a long, carefully worded apology via text, said she didn't want to fight, said we should document everything clearly so there's no confusion. At dinner, she brought it up casually, asked who else I'd spoken to, asked if Ruiz mentioned a timeline, asked if I remembered what day I forwarded the pension documents. It wasn't concern, it was prep. Her employer's legal team had clearly told her that her name was in the subpoena trail. She was trying to get ahead of the fallout by building her own story. Ruiz confirmed it the next day. "They're scrambling. Her company's pointing fingers to get ahead of liability. Your wife's signature makes her a convenient candidate." While that storm built, my son's wedding kept poking through like the one normal thread I had left. Reed called one afternoon, quiet and cautious. "Mom said federal agents came to the house. Is that true?" I told him, "Yeah, I'm handling something serious. You don't need to be involved." He asked, "Should I be worried?" "No," I said. "Just don't repeat anything you hear, not even to your mom." He didn't like it, but he agreed. Then the press started knocking, first at Finmeridian HQ, then at vendor offices, then at homes. Brenna's phone started ringing less. Her group chats went dark. By the end of that week, she got told to work remotely until further notice. Jory came up with a new strategy. She told Brenna to preemptively file something in court, restraining order, emergency separation, anything that would make me look unhinged. Said it would protect her reputation. Brenna didn't say no. She tested the waters that night. "If this gets worse," she said, "maybe we should set some boundaries." I nodded, finished my drink, and said, "Start wherever you like." I wasn't playing defense anymore. I kept receipts. I screenshotted texts. I stored every call log. I kept calm on purpose because Ruiz had drilled it into me. They want you to lose it. That's their leverage. Don't give it to them. I didn't, but the house turned into a minefield anyway. I slept with my keys in the same spot every night and my phone at arm's reach. Because when the whole structure's cracking, the last thing you do is let someone else hold your exit plan. She started talking like a divorce was a job. I started treating it like a firewall. While Brenna sold the victim story to anyone who'd listen, I spent my days in prep sessions with Ruiz and the U.S. Attorney's team. It was methodical. No pep talks, no drama. They trained me the way you train a witness who's going to get shredded and cross. Keep your tone even. Don't volunteer. Stick to what you saw and what you saved. They ran mock questions. They played aggressive defense. One guy even tried to rattle me by bringing up my marriage mid-testimony. It didn't work. I'd already walked through worse, across my own kitchen floor. The morning the first arrest went public, I was at home, sitting at the same kitchen table where Brenna once told me I was only useful with a chore list. The TV was muted, but the crawl across the bottom said everything. Finn Meridian executives under federal investigation. Vendor raids underway. My phone lit up seconds later. Ruiz's voice was calm, but clipped. Don't talk to anyone. Not friends, not neighbors, not even family. If someone asks, tell them your attorney will respond. She hung up before I could answer. I learned most of what happened next through other people. A friend of mine at a different branch sent me a photo of federal agents at Finn Meridian's main building. Brenna's old co-worker called the house looking for her, didn't realize I was the one who answered. Wait, so she's not at work? Nope, I said. She's not. That same afternoon, she got the official call, suspended pending internal review. She stood in the hallway afterward like someone had died. Then she turned sharp. I was told to sign those. I wasn't the one making the decisions. That was her new story. The old ones evaporated. Suddenly, it was her boss. Then her mother. Then some vague "everyone did it" line that sounded rehearsed from a damage control playbook. The part she didn't see coming was Jory folding. The second lawyers circled. Jory handed her own daughter over like bad luggage. She gets emotional, Jory told someone. I heard the voicemail myself when Brenna played it through tears later that night. She never followed instructions. I tried to help her, but she didn't listen. That was the moment Brenna realized what family loyalty meant in that house. Leverage, not protection. She tried to bargain with me the next day. Came into the living room, folder in hand, fake gentle. We should show a united front. Keep the house. Tell them I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't even stand up. I just looked her in the eye and said, no. You want protection? Get a lawyer. You don't get to borrow my name now. Jory doubled down, tried reaching out to my sister Kendra behind my back, called her, texted her, said I was spiraling, bitter, dangerous. Kendra forwarded everything. They're trying to recruit witnesses out of thin air, she texted. They must be scared. That did more for me than she probably realized. Testifying to the grand jury took multiple sessions. Each one felt like peeling layers off a lie with your bare hands. I kept it simple. No jargon. I explained it the way I'd explain it to Reed. Money left the company. Paperwork said work was done, but there was no work. Just missing money, and people clapping at meetings. Defense lawyers tried to spin me, said I was a disgruntled employee, said I had marriage problems, said I was seeking revenge. Ruiz had warned me, so I didn't flinch. The documents did what my words couldn't. They made their story collapse. By the time I stepped out of that federal building, Brenna had already made her move. She stopped calling it a misunderstanding. She stopped trying to fix anything. She was calculating losses, and I was counting what I still had left to protect. Brenna filed first, labeled it mutual, like we both woke up one morning and decided to split the check and shake hands. She told friends the stress changed me, that I'd become cold, obsessive, quietly unstable. I didn't bother correcting it. I didn't post a rebuttal. I just worked the paperwork like a man draining poison out of his own bloodstream, line by line, asset by asset, making sure her wreckage didn't stick to me. Jory moved fast, too. I watched from the sidelines as she started transferring money, cashing out accounts, shifting property titles. She thought she was a step ahead. She wasn't. The feds froze her accounts before the ink dried on her last move. Turns out Jory had been skimming off the system for years. Nothing dramatic, just steady little grifts. Stock flips based on whispers, vendor kickbacks from sweetheart contracts. She ran her retirement like a hedge fund with no license. The trap she built folded in on itself the second the audits kicked in. Her fancy diversification was all tied to Finn Meridian and its vendor shell companies. She'd defended them in my kitchen. Now they dragged her down like a sinking floorboard. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't feel bad either. What actually mattered came through the phone. Lorna called. "Hey, Carter," she said, voice cracked and soft. "I got the letter. I'm getting back almost all of it." She didn't cry, just said, "I can breathe again." That meant more to me than every article with my name redacted. Finn Meridian's top brass started folding. One by one, the ones who said we're committed to integrity in town halls stood up in court and said guilty instead. Ruiz kept me looped in, but didn't pressure me to attend the hearings. I didn't go. I didn't need to see Rourke say it was mismanagement. His signature on payout chains had already said more than his mouth ever would. Brenna lost her job officially the same week her employer filed a civil countersuit against one of the vendors. They pinned her as the signing authority. She turned right around and blamed Jory. Jory blamed everyone but her own reflection. Watching them tear at each other wasn't satisfying. It was confirmation. Loyalty had never been their currency. Control was. Reed's wedding happened that fall. Simple, classy, tight guest list. I showed up, wore a tie, kept my mouth shut, posed for pictures. I didn't let the fire I'd walked through touch a single part of that day. Brenna wasn't invited. Reed didn't ask for my opinion. He made the call himself. That told me everything I needed to know about what he'd seen over the years. I moved into a small condo near Forest Park. 1 bedroom, nothing dramatic. First night there, I sat on the floor with a beer and didn't turn on the TV. No running commentary, no cold stares, no footsteps pacing around looking for leverage. Just quiet. Months later, I saw Brenna in someone's tagged post. New guy, Tate something, flashy teeth, shiny shirts, always holding the phone up like life was a commercial. She looked happy in a way that felt staged. I scrolled past. No hate, no spike of anger, just nothing. That's how I knew I was done. I didn't chase peace. I built it. More than a year after the indictments, my life was smaller by design. No spotlights, no speeches, just steady contract work and fraud prevention and simple routines that didn't answer to anyone. I didn't explain what I'd done to neighbors. I didn't post about it. If someone only cared once the story broke, they weren't someone I owed answers to. One afternoon, I opened the mailbox and saw Ruiz's name on the return address. The envelope was thin, 1 printed page. Sentencing summaries, final numbers. Her note at the bottom was just 1 line. You did what you said you'd do. I read it twice, folded it neat, and slid it into my desk drawer. I didn't need it framed. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy for holding the line when everyone else blurred it. Restitution updates came later. Most retirees didn't get 100%, but they got enough to breathe again. Lorna emailed me and said she was staying in her home finally. She said, "You didn't let them bury us." That was all I needed. Jory resurfaced through a soft email. No subject line, just sugary words and 0 ownership. Hope you're well. We all make mistakes. Maybe someday we can talk. I didn't answer. I wasn't giving her one more word to spin. Silence was the only language she respected. Brenna kept it clinical to the very last form. She didn't ask for reconciliation. She wanted the file closed, the documents signed, the property split. Like she was offboarding an account, not ending a marriage. We met at the lawyer's office, signed what needed signing. No fight, no hug. She left first. I waited until her footsteps were gone before I stood up. After Reed's honeymoon, he had me over for dinner at his new place. Quiet meal, just us and his wife's cat. After the plates were cleared, he asked one question. Did she really laugh? I said yes. He nodded once, like it unlocked something in his chest, and never brought it up again. Sometimes that's how men move forward. One truth, no discussion. A few months after that, a guy I used to work with messaged me. Said Rourke had tried to pin the whole thing on middle managers right up until the end. I didn't even reply, just sat with that knowledge and let it settle into the space that used to hold guilt. Then one Saturday morning, I saw Brenna in the produce aisle. Tate was with her, loud and flashy, making a joke about peaches like he was on a stage. She saw me, froze, then turned away. I grabbed my cart, paid, and walked out without looking back. That's the part people never get. The win wasn't ruining them. The win was refusing to stay small. Real quick, can I put you on the spot? When someone treats you like you're finished and laughs in your face, do you keep the peace, or do you quietly flip the switch and take your life back? If you've got the hype feature, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people. And please subscribe and hit like too. It's huge for us, and it's one click. Then drop a comment, even just good story, or tell me what you would have done.